Hey guys, this is J-Boy from the J-Boy Show. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's a free way to make podcasts. It's unbelievable. It's how I started. Number one, like I said, it's free. Number two, it gives you creative tools to be able to add to your podcast, whether it be background music and all type of stuff. Three, they can get it on Spotify, Apple. You can get paid with sponsorships just by using ads, very similar to this one. So, download the free Anchor app, guys. It's unbelievable. You'll love it. And at the end of the day, it can get you started. All right. See you soon. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friday's edition of the J-Boy Show. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. And I also want to give a shout out to everybody that listened to our last episode. It's the response has been crazy. It's been overwhelming. It's been a lot faster than I thought, which is great. I appreciate it, you guys. I do want to make a couple announcements. Number one, I have brand new podcasting equipment coming in. Brand new computer, brand new software, brand new microphone, all that stuff. So this will probably be one of the last few episodes where the quality isn't perfect. So again, just as the show grows, y'all know this. I mean, I'm a real person. Y'all are real people. You know how it goes. But the more we grow, the more stuff I'll be able to do. And like I said, I want to keep it grassroots. I mean, it's going to be SEC. It's going to be SEC. Obviously, it'll be tailored a little bit more toward Auburn. But I want input from fans from every school, from South Carolina, from Alabama, from Missouri, from everywhere, Tennessee. You know, the beautiful thing I think about Auburn fans and SEC fans in general is that they love information when it comes to this topic. They want information. They want to be knowledgeable. They want to be well informed. So why not come to a place, and I think this podcast is the place where, number one, I'm not going to tell you what the coaches tell the reporters to tell you. Like I said, there's very few places that tell it to you that way. AuburnSports.com with Jay Tate and those guys, they'll tell it to you how it is. But really, there's not a lot of podcasts out there that are going to actually tell you the truth or not just give you the company line. And I'm not. I'm not here to tell you what the coaches, want you to think is going on. I'm going to tell you what's really going on. So I think that's why we've grown. It's because we're going to tell you the truth. And again, y'all, this show's about y'all. I was lucky enough to coach and do all that stuff and get this experience. And I want to be able to tell people about it. I just don't want to take it to my grave with me. And I think this is a great way to do it. And it helps everybody at the end. And then the last announcement I want to make is I want to thank Bill Cameron. I want to thank Dan Peck. I'm going to be on ESPN Radio, The Drive, 106.7 every Tuesday from 5:15. And again, I'm going to try and go on as many shows as I possibly can. Because again, we're trying to grow the brand and that's part of it. And y'all can help tremendously with that. And y'all have, and I appreciate that. So kind of a rundown of today's show. All right. And again, as we evolve, we'll be able to do more segments and stuff like that. But really, I just want to kind of give you, the playbook for today. Number one, I'm going to answer questions I got on Twitter. Got some really good ones. I'm going to start doing that in the first segment, probably every episode now, depending on the amount of questions I get. I picked 5. I got more than 5. If I didn't get your question, I'll get it next time, I promise. I will say your handle on here, and then I'll tag you in the post when I drop the episode on Twitter. So I want to get to it. But just for a quick second, we're going to hit a running back preview. We're going to talk about the new NCAA third-party rule, which I think is a good idea, depending on how hands-off the NCAA is, I would say. And, really, that's going to be kind of it. I don't want to say too long, probably about an hour. Like I said, once we get the equipment and stuff in here, we can really, get it going. I'll be able to have guests that call in. Dan Peck's going to be a guest on the show. I'm going to have recruits on the show. Like I said, I got a lot of connections, so we'll be having some high-profile guys on here as well, as long as with our doing the intel segments, which I think are great, which has been the most popular so far. But just starting off, I want to hit some of these questions because there's some really good ones, and I'll start with the football ones. And the first one comes from @Spain Tiger, one of my favorite guys on Twitter, loves the show. He asked, how much of a progression do you expect from Bo Nix in year 2? And generally, you're going to get a big jump from your freshman to sophomore year, especially at quarterback, especially when you played. He played the whole season. So he knows what has to happen. He knows what's expected. He knows what they have to do to win. The biggest progression that I want to see from Bo Nix, number one, and this really goes for Auburn as a whole. So the biggest thing, and I'll say this till I'm blue in the face, is that he's got to start throwing the check down. And that's not just to the running back. I finally got a chance to watch the games. And what I can tell you is, For some reason, Auburn does not throw the check down. They don't do it. Against Georgia and against Florida, it's there, especially to the back. It's there the whole game. And most of the games Auburn played. And what the check down allows you to do is to keep drives alive. And it's not just checking down on third down. It's being able to check down when you throw on first down. Being able to check down when you throw on second down. Auburn doesn't do that. You know, when I was coaching at Iowa Western, the defensive line coach there was a guy named Dave Tollefson. Played for the New York Giants, was Strahan's backup. He was the big white guy that would do the karate kick when he got a sack. If there are any Giants fans out there, or people that remember that. And I used to ask him all the time, because he had great insight, because he played in the league for a long time and seen basically everything. I asked him, hey, who was the best quarterbacks you played against? Instantly, he said Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Well, yeah. And you think, oh, it's because they're so accurate, or they have such great acumen for the game. He said what separated those guys is that they would, if you gave them the check down, they would throw the check down all the way down the field until they're in the end zone. So Tom Brady could care less if he threw a post. Peyton Manning could care less if he threw a vertical. They would take what the defense was giving them all the way down the field. Because you have to understand, quarterbacks and offensive coaches, and this is a big defensive coaching standpoint. You have to understand this as a defensive coach, is that quarterbacks and offensive coaches are greedy people. And I don't mean that in a, personal way. I mean that they want the big play. They want to score on one play every time. Well, naturally in your head, you think that one play, okay, it's a post, it's a vertical, it's a, screen that breaks or something like that. Well, those aren't high percentage balls. And you really only have 3 downs to play with. He used to say what would make him sick is that it'd be 3rd and 5 with Tom Brady. 3rd and 5. They'd have everybody covered. They'd be rushing the passer well, almost about to get there, and Tom Brady would just spit it to the back or spit it to Edelman right at the stick on the check down. And it kept the drive alive. But not only does it do that, it absolutely demoralizes the defense. And as a defensive coach and a defensive-minded guy, there is really almost nothing worse other than giving a touchdown that can happen than to give up a 3rd down consistently because he's throwing the check down. And guys, more times than not, it's there. Bo Nix has got to start throwing the check down, and it's got to be emphasized in practice because that's where it starts and stops. It may sound like a minor thing, but I think that is one of the top 3 biggest changes that Bo Nix needs to make in his game to be able to get over the hump in big games or in any game in general. So if he starts doing that and Auburn starts focusing on that, I think that's going to up his game. It'll up his completion percentage. It'll up his passing yards per game. It will up Auburn's 3rd down conversions during the game. It's an all-encompassing play. It really should be called a check up because it does nothing but push the stats most of the time in a good direction. And guess what? If you throw the check down out there one time and you only get 2 yards, well, now they know you'll throw it. So if they're in zone coverage, what does that guy that's trying to leverage that swing do? He starts to squeeze out a little bit more because he knows he's got to get there and make the tackle. But what most teams do is they'll run the swing with the back and to the same side, run the slant because they want that nickel or they want that outside backer to try and take the cheese and jump the swing so they can throw the slant behind it. And what's crazy, on offense, they don't emphasize seeing that the backer's stuck in the window because you've got so much RPO stuff now, you really never know. They don't realize that if he's stuck in the window, just throw the swing. And the only way you're screwed is if they're in cover 2. And you should have a good idea of that by alignment if you've done your homework. Because if you do throw the swing into a cover 2 corner, the corner's responsible for the flat. He's going to make the play. He's going to make the play. So what's your answer? Well, now you throw the whole shot in between the flat corner and the high safety. Because if the corner's playing the flat, what does the safety have to do? He's got to play on top of everything. So he's out of the picture. So again, it's little things with Auburn that add up to big things. And that's a very simple thing. And really the last thing I think Bo Nix really has to improve on. Because I think his eyes are going to be there. I think his pocket awareness is going to be there if the offensive line's much better than they were. Because again, all this is a moot point if they can't protect the passer. But the third thing I really want to see from him is that when he's got to know where the first down marker is when he scrambles, especially on third down. You should know where it is on every down. Most time, first down's easy. But when I watch these games, there's more times than not, it's 3rd and 6, and Bo Nix takes off, and he gets 4.5 or 5 yards. And let me tell you what that yard means. And I think that this will hit home for some of you guys. You remember Johnny Manziel, right? Sure you do. You remember Cam Newton, right? You remember Nick Marshall? Bunch of guys. Guys that win in college football, quarterbacks that can scramble, have to be able to get that extra yard for the first down. Johnny Manziel, how many times did you see him run to the sideline and wiggle for an extra yard to get the first down? A lot. How many times did you see Cam run over somebody for that final yard or be able to reach that ball out or dive for a first down? A lot. Nick Marshall, same thing. Hell, I can't really remember watching Nick Marshall get tackled once he got going. Bo Nix has got to develop that in his game because just like throwing the check down is demoralizing on 3rd and 5, it's even more demoralizing when the quarterback scrambles for 6. Everybody's covered. The quarterback scrambles for 6. It's demoralizing. As a coach, as a player, as a fan, everybody that's involved. So for Bo Nix to take that next step at Spain Tiger, I think that's what he's got to do. I think that's what he has to do. But I'm really big on this check down situation because I've seen it firsthand. And if you watch Auburn's film, you can see it. And I don't know why they're having more analysts, broadcasters, covers Auburn football talking about it. Because people don't think about it. It's too simple. It's too simple. It's a great question. It's a great question. Now the second one, sticking to football. This comes from Bobby P., a South Carolina fan. Believe it or not. Like I said, any fans are welcome here from the SEC. Any fans are welcome. It says, when do you think South Carolina with Will Muschamp, when will they be legit again in the SEC? Not a bad question. My answer, I think this year. And you say, whoa. How? Why? They won 4 games last year. Here's why. Number 1, they returned 4 out of 5 offensive linemen. And without having a spring, without really having a summer, that's going to be huge. It's worth its weight in gold. So you have 4 out of 5 offensive linemen coming back. You have a quarterback coming back that has experience, the Helinski kid. I think he will be a serviceable quarterback. I think he can get South Carolina to 9-3. I think South Carolina is going anywhere from 9-3 to 8-4. I think 10-2 is the absolute ceiling. The floor, you never know what the floor is because you never know what's going to happen with injuries. But I think 10-2 is the ceiling. I think they're going to land 8-4, 9-3. And here's, again, I'll continue to go through why. So they're bringing back 4 or 5 offensive linemen. You return a quarterback that can be serviceable, it can get the job done. You lose Javon Kinlaw. All right, they lost, I think, a couple D linemen. But the biggest thing is they return Aaron Sterling, led the team in tackles for loss. So you got a guy there. They got a senior defensive end named Kerr Thomas, who's probably going to start. They have they actually have 3 other guys. I know they have a former 5-star. I can't remember off the top of their head, but they have answers on the D line. And South Carolina never really hurts on the D line. They never really hurt on the D line. So I'll look at their schedule. First game, Coastal Carolina at home. It's a win. Second game, East Carolina at home. That's a win. 2-0. Third game, Missouri at home. I think that's a win. But what's crazy about South Carolina, and if you look at the numbers, this tells the story of Will Muschamp. Do you know if you take the scores since Muschamp's got there for South Carolina against Florida, they're basically tied. It's a virtual tie. You do the same with Georgia. South Carolina is averaging losing to Georgia by 6 points. Okay. Do you know that when you take the scores from South Carolina and Missouri, it's a virtual tie? So what does that mean? That means South Carolina plays Missouri as well as they play Florida. Do you know when you look at South Carolina versus Kentucky since Muschamp's been there, they're averaging losing by 3. So they play Florida better than they play Kentucky. Now they beat Vandy. Everybody beats Vandy. But until South Carolina wins the games that they're supposed to win, they're never going to be legit in the SEC again. Because legit is you're in the fight till the end. That's what legit is. So going back to the schedule. Coastal Carolina game 1 at home, win. East Carolina game 2 at home, win. Missouri at home, win. 3-0. At Kentucky. You want to be legit in the SEC? You got to win it. Let's say they do. 4-0. Then you go to Florida, October 3rd. That's a loss. 4-1. Next week, you got Tennessee at home. Got to win it. You want to be legit in the SEC, Muschamp? You got to win it. So let's say they do. All right, so you've beaten Coastal, you've beaten East Carolina, you've beaten Missouri, you've beaten Kentucky. You're 5-1. 5-1. After Tennessee, you get Texas A&M at home. You got to win it. 6-1. Let's say they do. Your next game is at Vandy. Guys, South Carolina, you could argue, should be 7-1 going into November 7th against Georgia at home. There it is, South Carolina fans. You want your monster game? November 7th at home against Georgia. They beat them last year, but Georgia's going to remember that, I promise you. Huge, monumental game. Because then the next week, you go to LSU. Then you got Wofford at home. Then you go to Clemson. So right now, I'm chalking up Clemson, at LSU, and at Florida as losses. So if you take care of business with everybody else, and let's say that you and Georgia, there it is, you're 7-1. That game, I think, will determine if South Carolina can win double-digit games. You mix in returners with the quarantine situation, because those two things are hand in hand, with a favorable schedule, and you're in the East. Because if you look at this, the teams they play from the West, I mean, you got Texas A&M at home and at LSU. Okay. Split those. Split it versus the West and turn it into a Georgia, Florida, South Carolina game. Because the biggest wild card is going to be Tennessee, but you get them at home. You get Texas A&M at home. You get Vandy on the road, which that's a road game you will take every year. Because that means you're playing them instead of somebody else on the road. And then you get Georgia at home. So, you ask, when do I think South Carolina with Muschamp will be legit in the SEC again? I think this year. This fall. It's very doable. And I know there's some people shaking their head and saying, you're crazy and all this other stuff, and that's fine. But watch it happen. Watch it happen. So that's a great question, Bobby P. I appreciate it. All right, sticking with football. Et al. Allbarn asks, Barn with an A, give me a new player for Auburn who you think will make the biggest impact this fall. And I'm sure this is probably a very popular answer, but for me, it's Tank Bigsby. And, it's almost kind of different saying that because Auburn is, you could say, decently deep at running back, and I'll get into that. But as far as a newcomer, when I watch Tank Bigsby, here's what separates. Number one, he's 215 pounds. But he's able to accelerate. People say he has a burst, able to accelerate like he's 180 pounds. He has elite acceleration. That's great. He's got the body to be able to handle 20 carries. But what I love when I watch Tank Bigsby is that half of his game has not even been tapped into yet. What do I mean by that? When I watch Tank run, he is running on pure natural feel and ability. And I'm not saying he hasn't been well coached as a running back. I think they realize what he has and they tell him this is the play and they leave him alone. Because typically, with running backs, it's, hey, we're running the power to the right. I want you to press the brown spot of the tackle. All right, it's either going to hit in the B and the C, and if they underplay it, it may be the D. But don't cut it back. I'll watch Tank Bigsby take the power. They'll pull the guard to kick the end. The end wrong arms the guard, which you've heard spill it. He spills it, so that creates a log jam where the run is supposed to hit, which happens a lot. It's a good play by the D end. And most running backs, the play's over. But with Tank, that's where that acceleration and that burst and that natural feel. He felt, when he got that ball, he could feel that end getting ready to spill at the angle. So he takes one step forward to make sure the end does and to keep the backers in the box. And then he squirts it. He jump cuts right to the right. And there's nobody there. And that wasn't a plan. That wasn't the play. That was him being a natural runner of the ball. A natural runner of the ball. I think he catches the ball well out of the backfield. I think he can pass protect. I think he's going to return kicks. But at the end of the day, I think he's going to be a guy that reminds you of what an Auburn running back should be. And I'm pretty excited to watch the kid play. I know everybody else is. It's a lot of pressure, but again, you kind of watch him and you see his interviews, and he's kind of unfazed. And the great ones are. The great ones are. And when I watch him, and I don't say this lightly, he reminds me of Dalvin Cook. Watch the way Dalvin Cook runs and go watch Tank Bigsby's highlights and look how they're put together. Look at the similarities. It's crazy. It's almost clone-ish. I think it's a great comparison. So that's at all Auburn. That's my answer there. I think it's Tank Bigsby. And again, it's going to stay that way. There's been no information to make me think otherwise. So moving on, we actually got a few basketball questions. I have two more. All right, from at Baker's Dozen. Again, one of my favorite guys on Twitter. Big fan of the show. Asked me to predict who the Auburn class in basketball, who they finish with, and who I think could be the Chuma Okeke or Isaac Okoro of next year's team. So basically, a newcomer that it turns into being an elite player. Right now, I would predict that Auburn finishes with Jonathan Kaminga, yeah, I said it, and Dylan Cardwell. Those are the two. I know you have Makor Maker out there, you have Adama Sanogo out there, you have Kai Soto out there. I don't see Auburn for Sanogo. I think Makor Maker, right now it's too far out. It just hasn't been. I've heard a lot of very Kentucky-ish things with him, which that wouldn't surprise me. But, I look at Jonathan Kaminga, and before I say this, I'm not saying this because Auburn missed out on Jalen Green and Greg Brown. Okay. But I think Jonathan Kaminga is a better prospect than Jalen Green or Greg Brown. I believe that, number one, Jonathan Kaminga is 6'8". Jalen Green's 6'5". Greg Brown's 6'8". Okay. So let's start with Greg Brown first because they're similar in height. Greg Brown's game starts about a yard inside the three-point line and goes in. He's 6'8". Jonathan Kaminga's game starts when he crosses half court. What do I mean by that? He can drive and finish. He can shoot. he's going to attract attention, which is going to leave other people open. But the thing I think that separates him is I think he has the highest ceiling defensively. He's unbelievably long. So is Greg. But if you look at the way he's built, it's a little more toned, a little thicker than what Greg is. And I think he's a little more tenacious. I watch him play and I can see that dog in him, like Jalen had. He's got that dog like Jalen did. Not saying that Greg doesn't, but I think Greg sometimes like, oh, I'm 6'8". I'm just going to come out here and play and ball on these kids. Well, Kaminga goes out there and he's like, well, I'm going to drop 45. And I'm going to get 10 boards. And I'm going to block shots. And I'm going to dunk it in your face. And I'm going to let you know about it. Auburn needs that Malik Dunbar personality. And I think Kaminga could bring that a little bit on the court from what I've seen. And Dylan Cardwell, again, I say the same thing about Stretch. I don't know why Auburn fans, and it's almost, Auburn basketball fans have to make sure they don't get spoiled now. And what I mean by that is Dylan Cardwell is a guy 3 or 4 years ago that it would have been a huge get for Auburn. Dylan Cardwell has a few things really going in his advantage. Number one, he's a 4-star, so he's pretty high profile. Played on one of the best AAU teams with Sharif Cooper. So you have that connection there. So there's that built-in chemistry. Because you know Reef's going to be running the point. Well, you have a guy like Stretch, who Auburn fans underrate, who I think is going to be a really good player. A really good player. You want to know who I think is going to be the Chuma or Okoro next year? The guy that kind of steps on the scene and takes it? I think Stretch is. I think Stretch is. Because for some reason, I mean, guys, Austin Wiley was an 8th-year senior. Of course he's going to play. When Stretch got in there, number one, he wasn't afraid. You know defensively Stretch is going to be fine. It's the offensive game that he's going to work on. And give the guy a chance. He's got to get a chance to go in there and do his thing with consistent minutes. But you sign a guy like Dylan Cardwell, I promise you, Auburn fans, in 2 years from now, you will be thanking your stars that Dylan Cardwell plays for Auburn. Because his ceiling and his want to... See, sometimes with these high-profile guys, their work ethic is still good, but it's not what it takes to take the biggest step they can. I think Dylan Cardwell is going to maximize his ability at 6'10". And he's right, and he's got a connection with Rodney Garner. So you know he's got dog in him. And it's smart what Bruce is doing, but I think it's crazy if Auburn doesn't take Dylan Cardwell. I think it's absolutely crazy. So my prediction is Kaminga and Cardwell right now. That could change. It could change. But right now at Baker's Dozen, that's what I'm going with, man. I appreciate the question. All right, and the last one I'm going to take is from @JaredBasedMan. All right, and I'm going to answer this now, but you got to understand the rosters aren't complete. So I'm going to have to eventually, once the rosters get complete and we know who's on what team, then I'll be able to make this prediction. But @JaredBasedMan asked me, predict the top 4 for SEC men's basketball next year. And right now it is a tough one, like I said, because we don't know who's where. We don't know who's where. But I'll go ahead and make this prediction right now. But I'm not gonna cement it. It won't be cemented. 1, Kentucky's gonna be up there. You know they will. They'll be in the top 4. I think LSU's gonna be up there. How Will Wade sells a job blows my mind. Blows my mind. I mean, it's like they let CNN cover the Will Wade thing. It's unreal how he's ducked it. I don't know how much longer he's going to duck it. But man, that story is just crazy. That's a story for another day. But I think LSU will be up there because they'll have the players that got paid enough to be up there. And then from there, it gets a little hairy to me. It's really hard for me not to see Tennessee being really good with the way that they've recruited. And Rick Barnes is a really good basketball coach. I guarantee you Texas fans would take Rick Barnes back in a second over Shaka. But I think Tennessee has a chance to be up there. I think Florida has a chance to be up there. They return Keontae Johnson. The Scotty kid, I can't remember his last name. He was a McDonald's All-American. And Florida will be there. Florida will have the talent to be there. And then they have the point guard. Again, his name escapes me, but I'm not sure. I don't think he's declared. I believe it's the Canadian kid. And it's really hard for me not to see Auburn up there with Bruce Pearl. Because I'm betting on Bruce Pearl is what I'm betting on. Because you know Auburn's going to finish the class well. You know they're going to finish the class well. And Bruce does a great job of taking new guys. They're like, oh, well, Auburn lost all its scoring. Well, didn't Auburn lose all its scoring the year before last? When they went to the Final Four? If I remember correctly, Bryce Brown, Jared Harper, Chumo Kiki, Malik Dunbar. Those guys scored a lot of points. And Auburn went 25-6 this year. So why would I not believe that Bruce would do it again? The one thing I don't understand, and again, like I said, I'm not going to wear orange and blue glasses. And I'm not saying this because, obviously I grew up in Auburn and my dad played there and have a ton of connections to Auburn. I am not getting this Alabama basketball hype. I don't get it. Now, I think Nate Oates is a damn good basketball coach. I think Alabama will be good in basketball sooner rather than later. But I don't think it's next year. I mean, you talk about jumping on a bandwagon without any wheels. I mean, you lose Kyra Lewis, who was your best player. You lose John Petty, who scored you a ton of points. So you lose those two guys. Okay. You lose the Forbes kid, the freshman, who I thought was a pretty good shooter. Okay. They signed a five-star kid out of California. He's supposed to be a good player. But again, you never know. That's an unknown. So what are you telling me? You're telling me a Villanova transfer that couldn't play there. You're telling me Herb Jones, who's an unbelievable defender, can't score. And Shackelford, who's an unbelievable shooter, but can't play defense. And then you have Alex Reese, who's a really good shooter for a big man, but doesn't play hard. And really, where is this coming from? What's supposed to make me believe that Alabama's not going to lose at least 12 games next year? Now, I haven't looked at the schedule, but I mean, I don't know if people remember, but Kyra Lewis and John Petty kept them in games. And Alabama was in a lot of games because of those guys. Where's your offense going to come from? Where's it going to come from? Ain't coming from Herb Jones. He shoots free throws better with one hand than he does with two. Now, Nate Oates will get Alabama basketball to be competitive, but it's not going to be next year. I don't understand. And it has nothing to do with Auburn. It has nothing to do with anybody else other than I look at the players and it doesn't add up to me. Even if I'm forgetting somebody, it's still not enough. So I don't understand that hype. I really don't understand. But that's what I'm thinking right now. So I would say I would solidify Kentucky. Let's go Kentucky, LSU, Tennessee, and Auburn. Let's go there. Kentucky, LSU, Tennessee, and Auburn. For right now. Don't cement it. But I appreciate the question and keep them coming. So that's it. Those are the 5 that I'm going to take. Like I said, this is probably my favorite segment to do because obviously it involves you guys and what's on y'all's mind, and that's what counts. So kind of transitioning. We've been doing this position preview for Auburn. We've already hit the quarterbacks. We've already hit the offensive line. So I want to move to running backs. And before I do, I'm going to say this once and once only because I don't want to beat a dead horse. If the offensive line can't block, it doesn't matter how good the running back is. Only time I'm going to say it. So moving on. Let's look at who Auburn has at the running back position because I'm looking and there's some really good, there's some good bodies here. There's some good depth here, but there's a few things. Number 1, DJ Williams. Got some play last year. And when I watch guys play, I don't care if they're freshmen. I don't care if they're seniors. The thing that I see with DJ Williams is I think about the run against LSU. You got to score. You're breaking away. Then you take a terrible angle, and you end up being forced out. And Auburn, I think they may have got a field goal or maybe got nothing. You got to score that. There's a difference between being a player that gets the job done and a player that almost gets the job done. You know what I loved about Ronnie Brown is that when he saw Jason Allen, when they played Tennessee, in between him and the goal line, it doesn't matter if they put Mount Rushmore in front of Ronnie Brown. He's going to run its ass over and score. Because he knows when you play running back at Auburn, you are held in the highest of esteem. You are expected to finish that play. You're expected to get that extra yard for the first down or the touchdown. You're expected that when the offensive line does their job and you're supposed to go score, damn it, you go score. The Ronnie Brown example is a great example. I'll give you another one. Carnell Williams. And you maybe say, oh, you're comparing him to these guys. They played running back at Auburn. That's what's expected. When you put that jersey on and you play that position and you bend down and you put your hands right on top of your thighs and you're looking at that quarterback getting ready to get that ball, you're a different breed when you have that jersey on at that position. And I don't know if DJ Williams has that. Because I don't know if you guys remember when Auburn played Syracuse at home, okay, when Caddy was there. I think it was 4th and 1 or 4th and inches. Everybody in the world knew Auburn was running the ball. They turn around, hand the ball to Cadillac. He gets hit 2 yards in the backfield, literally right when he gets the handoff. He balance touches, which means he's about to fall, and catches his body with his hand and fights his guts out for 2 yards to get the first down. Auburn wins the game. That's what playing running back at Auburn is. That's what playing running back in the SEC is. And DJ Williams got to figure it out or he can't play. And I don't know DJ. I think DJ's a good player, but good ain't good enough. He's got to be able to finish plays. Then you look at a guy like Shawn Shivers. I want Shawn Shivers to play so bad, but he can't pass protect. He can't pass protect. So when he's in the game, do you think Auburn's throwing the ball? And if you think that, the defense definitely thinks that. It's great that you run 4-3, but you're also 4-3. That's tough on him to be able to pass protect. It's almost impossible unless he becomes the Bruce Lee of cut blocking. So you can't consistently put Shawn Shivers in there. You can't. Now you can give him your jet sweeps, and it's great that he ran a player over. That's great. But that doesn't make you, that one play doesn't make you an every down, all SEC type back. So you're going to have to use Shawn Shivers on kickoff return. You're going to have to use him for jet sweeps. You can throw him screens, all that stuff. But he cannot consistently be the guy at running back. He just can't because he can't pass protect. And it's not fair to ask him to do that. But you knew that when you signed him. So I think Shawn Shivers can be a plug-and-place guy, a jet sweep guy, but nothing consistent. Then you look at what I think is the biggest wild card of the whole deal. And it's Harold Joyner. Is he a running back? Is he a flex? Is he an H-back? I think Harold Joyner is a running back. He's just got to learn how to hold on to the football. Because if you can't hold on to the football, I don't care how good of a running back you are, you're not going to play. Because you look at him and he's built like Darren McFadden. I remember watching him taking that wheel, catching that wheel, and watching him run. I was like, good God, looks like a Clydesdale running down the field. Unbelievably gifted. I think if he can prove that he can hold on to the ball, he's a guy that Auburn can throw the ball to. He's a guy that can pass protect. Shoot, he's a guy that can stick his face in a little bit on the edge. But where I think he's going to make his money is in the red zone. That's where Harold Joyner is going to make his money. Now, if he is able to hold on the ball, could he push for the starting job at running back? You damn right he could. But he's got to prove that he can hold on the ball and that he can take the coaching. Because if you can't do that, then it's a moot point. All right, then we're moving on to Mark Anthony Richards. If you remember, this guy was a high-profile guy. High-profile guy. Looks the part. I'm just very hesitant on transfers in this situation. I'm going to leave the jury out on Mark Anthony Richards because, again, he could be a guy that surprises everybody. He's got the ability. But there's a lot of unknowns in that situation. And then finally, I think the best running back on Auburn's roster is Tank Bigsby. And I talked about it earlier, so I'm not going to dive that deep into it again. It's very Dalvin Cookish when you watch him run. I think Tank Bigsby will be the starting running back in Auburn. I think it's going to go Tank Bigsby and DJ Williams as your stable. I think Shivers is going to be a Jets guy. And I think Harold Joyner is your red zone, third down and short type back. And then you have Mark Anthony Richards that, again, we have to see it out of. But, I mean, you look at it and you have everything that you need. You have speed guys, you have power guys, you have blended guys, you have guys that can catch the ball, you have guys that can pass protect -1. So Auburn's in a very good spot at running back. A very good spot. And I feel like at the end of the day, Tank, even though he's a freshman, is going to be the guy. He's going to be the guy. So that's kind of my running back preview. We'll hit the receivers next. Receivers and tight ends, I'll blend that together just because of the numbers. But that's really kind of where Auburn's offense is. And again, it all comes back to the offensive line. I'm not going to harp on it. All comes back to the offensive line. So the last thing I want to hit today is this new NCAA third-party rule that they're talking about. And basically, in layman's terms, they'll allow college athletes to accept endorsements and all that stuff as long as the school's not involved, which is great. That's fine. That's a great rule. But they don't set really what a cap on how much they can make is. The thing is, I don't think you can set a cap. I don't think you can set a cap on how much they can make. It can't be you can only make $10,000. No, it's what every company decides. Because if you start making that decision, you can only make this. The NCAA is not going to be hands off. It is going to be so hard for the NCAA to be hands off this thing if it ends up going the way that it's looking like it's going. I'm not worried about the schools being involved in it as much as I am the NCAA. The reason I say that is because, okay, you do put a cap on it. Your highly endorsed player can only make $20,000. Well, the G League's offering people $500,000, $250,000, $300,000. So you don't fix the problem in basketball. You don't fix the problem. What I'm interested in is how it will affect baseball. Do you think more guys will end up going to college now because the minor league, and again, you get your sign-in bonus and all that stuff, but why not say, okay, if I can get paid in college, because once they get to the minors, it's not like they're making a ton of money in the minors. So why not go to school for a year and be able to play college ball and probably increase my draft stock and get a ton of exposure and be able to make money? I think it turns college baseball. It is a huge feather in the cap for college baseball. Because again, in college baseball, you're dealing with partial scholarships. I know, I signed one. You're dealing with partial scholarships. So now a kid that's like, man, I really want to go play at Auburn, but the Red Sox are offering me $300,000 with a $50,000 sign-in bonus. God, and I'm going to have to pay $20,000 to go play at Auburn? I think it's going to offset that scholarship deal. I think it's going to actually help college baseball and college basketball way more than it helps college football when it comes to people going pro. There's nobody leaving after their freshman year going to the NFL or going straight out of high school to the NFL. So it's at that point, it's a different animal. But with college basketball and college baseball, I think it's a huge positive difference for going to college, especially in baseball, because basketball and football give full scholarships. But the question remains, Will the NCAA keep their hands off this thing? That's the biggest deal. I just have a hard time seeing that happening. And we'll see. It hadn't passed yet or anything like that. Obviously, you're looking at, they're talking about the new transfer, they're not going to do the one-time transfer deals, what it's looking like right now. So, again, I think that throws in a wrench, kind of maybe a little bit in what Bruce Pearl and them have done recruiting, but it's not like they don't know what's already going to happen. It's not like they don't know. So I don't think that's a super worry. But again, just wrapping up, I just want to thank you guys. I want to thank the guys at ESPN Radio at 106.7. Like I said, the new equipment is coming in. It's going to be beautiful, man. We'll have this thing set up on YouTube. It'll be 100% legit and 100% professional. And just like everybody, man, we're getting better every day. And I just really appreciate you guys. And we got to keep growing. So if you got friends out there, that you think would be interested, tell them to listen. Tell them to listen. And can't see if we can keep growing the way we've been. And I really enjoy doing it and talking to you guys. So again, man, this has been another episode of the J-Boy Show. And J-Boy is out.